So as we try to figure out how our region reopens bit by bit, other states are taking different approaches. And one state that's been attracting a lot of attention is California and its governor, Democrat Gavin Newsom. Let's talk about it with Mediaite senior columnist John Ziegler, up late with us from the West Coast on the Final Five. John, good to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
Talk to me about how things are going out there. I know that they've started to loosen regulations up in about 23 counties or so, about 80,000 cases in this massive state. I imagine the frustration for a lot of people is building by the minute.
Yeah, more than by the minute, especially since Governor Newsom, just over 8 weeks ago, predicted that by this point, we would have over 25 million cases of coronavirus, which would then, based upon the projections at the time, mean hundreds of thousands of deaths. And instead, we have about 80,000 confirmed cases and just over 3,000 deaths. And nobody seriously believes that it was the shutdown that prevented all of that. Governor Newsom, in my view, made a colossal miscalculation about where California stood. And I believe that the shutdown was overbearing and has gone on too long. And frankly, I think most of what is driving his motivation in the shutdown is not the fear that something bad will happen if, in fact, he lets up and lets Californians have our basic freedoms back. But instead, if he lets up and nothing bad happens, because then the entire shutdown loses its credibility, and then he turns from hero to potential goat. I'm not suggesting that's the entire motivation, right, but I think that's part of what is going on here. And there's another political angle, which is, of course, we're in the middle of a presidential election year, and he wants to show just how against Donald Trump he is. And I'm a conservative, but I'm no fan of Donald Trump at all. Didn't vote for him. But I do think that that's another element of this that is impacting his decision making. California, thankfully, has not been in a catastrophic situation here. There's no sign we're going to be in a catastrophic situation here, and the state should not be shut down. And frankly, I believe that some of the reporting about California opening up has been overblown. We have not really opened up anything here. I still can't take my kids across the street to play on the swings in the playground, among many other things, which are just ridiculous in a county just north of Los Angeles that has virtually had no virus since the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at so many states right now, John, where you have, I know in the Commonwealth of Virginia, you're having a kind of a piecemeal approach where most of the state reopened over the weekend. The northern part, right around the D.C. area, has not yet. But I'm glad you mentioned about the political angle, because it seems like there is this idea that you're either for the shutdown or you're against it, and it's drawn along party lines. But the reality is, as you mentioned, California, this massive state, I'm looking at the numbers. I saw 80,000. And that, to me, in the state of California, it's a drop of the bucket. I think we know that this has been a serious concern for a lot of people, but it's been 2 months now. And why do you think that there has been, and I think we know the answer, but I want to get your perspective on this, Gavin Newsom, Andrew Cuomo getting a lot of positive publicity out there. You're not hearing much about Mike DeWine of Ohio, who got the state back open, who has been really, in the grand scheme of things, kind of a model for how you could get things back on track without getting all this media attention.
Well, there's obvious liberal media bias. It's remarkable that both Andrew Cuomo and Gavin Newsom can both be heroes, considering their results have been completely at the opposite ends of the spectrum here. I personally believe, and I've written at Mediaite about this, that part of what happened here in California is that we had this far sooner than anyone realized, that we may not even understood what was happening here. I think a lot of our presumptions about the nature of the shutdown are false and will be eventually proven to be false. And again, this is not a situation where this is not a serious set of circumstances. It's not a hoax or anything like that. It's real. It's very serious. It should be taken seriously, especially if you're older or if you're in bad health. But the reality is that I think that because we're in an election year and everyone on the Democratic side needs to show how against Trump they are, and Trump is perceived as being more in favor of opening up the country, although frankly, I wish he was more in favor of opening up the country, especially areas of the country that have not had very serious problems with the virus, that is the prism through which we see everything. And it's really dangerous because we're really, talk about divided. I mean, this whole situation is as red state and blue state as it could possibly get, even within states. It's almost like the mask is the ultimate political statement now, having almost nothing really to do with fighting the virus. It's about whether or not you are publicly in favor of Trump or against Trump. And it's gotten, I think, to almost a very dangerous situation, especially as we go forward here and people become more and more frustrated by the country not opening up as fast as we thought it might. I mean, flatten the curve has basically turned into a bait and switch. I mean, we flattened the curve here in California so flattened that there really wasn't ever a curve. Yeah. And here we are over 2 months later, and we still haven't opened up because they've now moved the goalposts. The goalposts are now suddenly somehow no deaths at any cost, which it doesn't make any sense.
John, I got like 15 seconds here before I let you go. Eric Garcetti, mayor of California, mayor of Los Angeles, hinting that maybe this lockdown will go through the summer. Do we think that's going to be the case, or are people going to, I guess, rise up, for lack of a better term?
In Los Angeles, I think it could go on almost indefinitely because the political circumstances are such that Garcetti has no fear. In California as a whole, Newsom has a little bit different set of circumstances to deal with. So I would say Los Angeles will probably be the last major city in America to fully open up.
John Ziegler, good to see you again. I appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
Final five back after this.